Good afternoon, everyone. How are you guys? I hope we're all doing well. My name is Naomi, and I will be your moderator or MC for today. For today's session, I hope we're super ready to learn. I hope we have our notebooks and our pens. I can already see some AI note takers in here, so that's really, really good that you can review. I don't think we can unmute ourselves. So if you have any questions, please use the chat at your disposal. But yeah, just let's make sure that we create an environment so that everybody can learn and pick up what we are here to learn about. So with that, I think I would like to invite our speaker of today. Stephanie, are you on the call with us yet? I don't know, Stephanie, are you on the call? You can just raise your hand. I don't think you have speaking permissions, so you can raise your hand so that I can give you speaking permissions. Yeah. Great. Okay. So I'm going to allow mic and I'm going to allow camera. So you will just kick us off with today's session, and then yeah, we'll continue like that. So I'll just turn my mic off and I'll turn my camera off as well so that we can all focus. And then if you have a presentation, you can also share it. So just for testing purposes, can you share and is your camera on and is your mic working?
Okay, there we go. Thank you so much, Naomi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, cool. Just going to turn my camera on. There we go. All good on your end?
Yes, perfect. Can you share
All right,
if you have anything you're
so
sharing?
yes, I do have something to share, but it's disabled. It says only meeting organizers and presenters can share, so it's blanked out for me at the moment.
Okay, let me see what I can do. So I'm
Okay.
spotlighting you and
Okay.
then let me. Sorry, just give me a minute. I think you can maybe just go ahead with your introduction and then once it's on, you should be
Yeah.
able to see it.
Okay, sure, no worries at all. Okay, cool. So, hi everyone. Yeah, really excited to be here to help you all with your work readiness. My name is Stephanie, and I have been working in recruitment now for 5 years. And I currently work at OfferZen as a tech talent advisor. Yeah, so basically everything that I'm going to be telling you today is from experience over the past 5 years. And today's presentation will mainly focus on two main topics, which will be pursuing a career in terms of how you present yourself on CV. So in terms of CV writing, how you present yourself professionally, basically on paper. And then secondly, as well, interviewing when it comes to the actual performance, how you can, kind of prepare for that and confidently communicate your value during interviews. So yeah, that's what today will be all about, because I do have a slide I want you guys to follow. So I'm just going to wait to get those permissions. Maybe as we wait for that, I do see there's a lot of people on the call. So maybe let's get some engagement going in the chat. Just drop in there whether you are currently unemployed or if you are a graduate, or just an idea of like where you're currently at in your job searching, and maybe even like how you're finding it. Is it tough? Are you taking things easy at the moment? Let's see where everyone is currently at. Awesome. Thank you, Naomi. I am going to share. Okay, because I am only using one screen, I do just need someone to confirm for me that you can see.
Yes, we can see. It's clear.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. Just need to quickly split my screen. Okay. All righty, cool. There we go. All right, cool. So yeah, this is your CV writing and interview prep boot camp. And yeah, like I did briefly mention, the two main focus areas for today is going to be your CV writing, how you're going to present yourself professionally on paper, as well as that interview performance, how you can communicate your value in interviews. All right. So just going to kick us off firstly with something that's quite important. So in terms of, you know, knowing what the market reality is like. And also right now, already in the chat, I saw a lot of people saying, currently unemployed, I'm an undergraduate. So at the moment, you might kind of feel like, hey, I'm unemployed. I feel a bit uneasy even, maybe because you don't have that formal experience. But I'm here to tell you that that is not how you should see things. So you are basically just, early career talent entering what is a very competitive market at the moment, which is really just the reality. And the tech industry at the moment, reality is that it is quite tough at the moment, especially at junior level. However, even still, you'll find that a lot of people are getting rejected, not because they're not capable, but because they don't present their value clearly. And at the moment, what we're seeing is that a lot of employers are being very careful in their hiring. Um, and also, what they're really looking for is potential clarity and communication. All right. So today, the aim is to kind of help you communicate your value in a way that gets you the attention that you need, especially in a tough market that's like what we're in at the moment. All right, so starting off with your CV. All right, so let's talk about that CV. In terms of recruiters and hiring managers, okay, when they first look at that CV, um, it gives them about 6 to 10 seconds to scan that CV, and in those 6 to 10 seconds, what they really are looking for is, does this person match the role? Okay, is it easy to see that okay, this person could potentially be a good fit? They're also looking to see, do you have the relevant skills for that particular job? Will you be able to start and kind of hit the ground running? And for the hiring manager and for that recruiter, it's also a big matter of, can they quickly understand what it is exactly that you do? All right. And so if those answers are not clear immediately, just that by looking at your CV, unfortunately, then your CV is going to get skipped. Okay. So, yeah, your CV will really need to be clear, structured, as well as focused. Okay, so we'll start off by talking about role alignment when it comes to your CV. And this means that, your CV shows what you've done. And basically, the recruiters are asking, does this person fit the job? Yes or no? Um, and they because they're going through so many applications, they don't have time to try and figure it out. Okay. They expect your CV to kind of make it really obvious. All right. And so, what does strong alignment with a particular role look like? So this would mean, the job title, your skills, and your experience, they mirror the role that you're applying for. All right. So the keywords on the job description itself will need to appear naturally on your CV, as well as your most relevant experience needs to be easy to find. Okay. Not buried somewhere and hard for the recruiter to kind of figure it out. Okay. When we're talking about weak alignment on a CV, that means that you've just got a generic CV and you've got one CV that you use for applications for all types of roles. So yeah, that's going to be a really weak alignment. Experience on that CV, when it's weak alignment, it might be the experience might be there and it might be relevant, but it might not be positioned correctly. Okay. So then the recruiter has to end up connecting the dots. And if a recruiter has to try and interpret your CV, you've lost them. All right. When it comes to clear skills, all right. So recruiters are scanning quickly, for the capability signals. So strong CVs will kind of make skills instantly visible. So in terms of, let's say, your technical skills, you've got one section that clearly, lays out the technical skills that you have. On the one side, you also have all of your soft skills that are grouped together. Your tools are also grouped together. All right, so everything is quite clear and very easy to read. And then you've also got skills that match that particular role requirement. Okay, so it's not about listing everything, it's really about listing what matters for that specific job. So also, for example, instead of writing on there, good communication, teamwork, leadership, you want to say things that will give a bit of a punch. So something like stakeholder communication, client relationship management, project coordination. All right. So here, what the thing is that clarity is really gonna beat quantity, and a focused skill set is more powerful than just having a long, unfocused list. All right. And when it comes to evidence of impact, this is where a lot of CVs fail. All right. But where strong candidates can actually stand out quite immediately. So recruiters don't just want, responsibilities. Yes, it's good to have responsibilities. They do want to know, what your day to day looks like, and what you're involved in. But they mostly want to see results and impact. Okay, so when they're looking at your CV, the most intriguing thing there would be, what difference did this particular person make? All right. So you might have a bullet point that says, responsible for managing social media accounts as a responsibility, but then a strong bullet point accompanying that would be, grew Instagram engagement by 45% in 3 months through targeted content strategy as a result. Okay, so it shows exactly the type of impact that you actually made. All right. So when it comes to impact, the things that are going to matter most on your CV are things like numbers, which will include revenue growth, or how you helped in cost saving or even time saving, as well as any improvements that you made, any efficiencies that you added to performance, as well as customer experience. And then in terms of outcomes, so any projects that you delivered and any targets that you might have exceeded. In the case that you don't have any numbers that you can show on your CV, you can still say things like, improved customer response time, streamlined internal processes, things like that. At least they still show impact. And impact is really what tells us why you matter. All right. And then lastly over here, in terms of a clean structure, um, even if you have, like, the impact is clear on your CV, and it shows that you're a strong candidate, if your CV is hard to read, it's still gonna be left out. Okay, it's gonna be booted out. Okay, so recruiters scan. They don't really have time to read thoroughly, and then in the event that your CV is going through an ATS system, it also requires a clean structure so that it's easily scannable on the ATS system. Okay, so a clean structure is really going to help to find that key information instantly. So you want clear headings that will, show the experience, the skills, the education, consistent formatting. You want, fonts, spacing, bullet points, especially bullet points. You want logical order as well. So at the top, you want your most recent experience going down, all right, not your last experience at the top. Your most recent experience needs to be at the top. And then you also want scannable bullet points, all right? So what's going to really hurt your CV is if there's dense blocks of text, if there's inconsistent formatting, too many design elements as well, it's just going to throw off the recruiter, it's going to throw off the ATS system, and it can make the information hard to find. Okay, so you just want that to be really clear. This is an example of a really great CV structure. So, at the top there, you want it to be really clear and easy to read. As you can see here, we've got the name, we've got the title, and that title, you want it to be the title of your current position. Okay, you also want your contact details at the top there. You don't want a recruiter trying to figure out how they can contact you other than, email. There needs to be your number clearly at the top there, so that if they need to call you, it's quick and easy. And then you want a strong summary. I mean, in this age of AI, you can simply take all the experience that you have and all your skills, put it into your preferred LLM machine, and just ask it to output a strong, concise summary of who you are. So just a few lines like you have on this one. It kind of tells you, who you are, how many years of experience that you currently have, maybe your tech stack, what you're passionate about, something that kind of speaks to who you are, quick and easy. All right. Followed up by that, you want to put in your work experience. And like I mentioned, you want your most recent experience to be at the top in terms of timeline and then going down. And please do also add in the dates. So the timeline of how long you were at that particular organization. And once again, you want this to be specific and tailored to the company and to the role that you're applying for. So if you've, worked somewhere where it's irrelevant in terms of this position that you're applying for, don't include it. Okay, you can always just put a disclaimer there and say, this CV just currently shows the roles that you've been in that align with what you're applying for. All right, and then you have down here your skills section. All right, and like I mentioned again, you do want to kind of group them accordingly. So in terms of, like, here you see there's a list of your hard skills, and then on the side there you've got your technical skills. Very easy to read, short bullet points. Okay, and then at the bottom you've got your education. You want to make sure it clearly shows, what kind of qualification it is, and then also just some insight as to some of the majors in that particular course. If it is a degree maybe that you're still busy with, then on that date, just leave the dash, or in brackets, you can kind of put incomplete, all right? And then other, that's where you can put any, voluntary projects that you're involved in, or any communities, and then projects as well, especially at junior level. And when you have no experience or anything like that, the project is what actually really becomes the experience for you. So you want to make sure your projects are there, and also your GitHub link, okay? As well as a LinkedIn link as well. Some of the most common CV mistakes. All right, so we're going to go through some of these mistakes that can really cost someone when it comes to applications. So number one, listing responsibilities and no achievements. Like I did mention, of course, it's going to be important for you to say what you do on your day to day and some of those responsibilities that you have within your organization. But you want to show what you have achieved, how you have made things better for that particular business. All right. And then you also don't want to use generic statements, like I mentioned, hardworking, team player. Those are really not going to mean anything if there's no proof. Okay, so you want to expand on what does that hardworking, look like? What does that team player actually look like? And then no tailoring to the job. We touched on this again. So you want to make sure that it's relevant to that particular job. And then poor formatting, clutter, too busy. The font is not. I know sometimes people want to be creative and they want their CV to look pretty, want it to look unique and all of that, which is fantastic. But when it comes to actually submitting a CV like that, it's going to do more harm than good. Okay. And then irrelevant information. So, like I mentioned, if it doesn't pertain to that particular role, then don't put it there. Okay. And what you're going to find is that this will, at the bottom here, this will kind of be your impact formula. So you use action verbs as well as what you did, as well as the tools that you used, and then the results. Okay, so for example, analyzed customer data using Excel to identify trends and improve reporting accuracy. So this is how you're gonna make your CV stand out. Okay, and then when it comes to interview preparation, so understanding the interview journey is really what's gonna help you to best prepare. Okay, so when you know what to expect and you can prepare accordingly, then half the job is done and it makes things so much easier for you. It allows you to go into the interview process not sweating like this man that we have here in the middle, but you can actually go in there quite calm because you know what to expect and you're ready to go for it. Okay, so typically, this is what the interview journey looks like. Each company is different, so they might do things a little different, but typically you can expect for the first step in the interview process to be the screening call, followed by a technical assessment or a technical interview, and then go on to the cultural fit, and then lastly, a psychometric test. But like I mentioned, it can switch up. There are some companies that like to start with a technical assessment. So as the first step, they want to just see if you have the technical ability, and then they'll talk to you later. And then some who start off with the psychometric test. It really just depends. But when it comes to that screening call, it's really that first initial alignment check, and they want to check the skills that you have, the experience, your goals, and it's also a time that you can learn more about the company as well as the role. And it's also for the hiring manager or that contact person to figure out in those few minutes if you could potentially be a good fit. Okay, and then when it comes to technical assessment, here they really just want to evaluate your technical ability, see if you're a strong coder. They want to see if you're a good analyzer, all of those things. And what they're really trying to gauge at this point is your thinking and your approach when it comes to the technical aspects. Okay, and then after that, when it comes to cultural fit, they're kind of assessing whether you would have that alignment with the team itself, okay, and the company as a whole. So in terms of their values, in terms of how they do things, will you be a good fit? Will you kind of blend in with the culture that they have? Most times at this cultural fit, it's also a time for you to come in and meet the team if there's offices. And at this point, you hadn't gone to the offices yet. This is usually the time when that will happen. And it's also a time for you to ask any final questions that you might have and gain any clarity that you feel like hadn't been there up until that stage. Okay, and then you also have your psychometric test, which can sometimes be the last step, and it's really there to assess your cognitive ability and your thinking style, as well as understanding some of those behavioral and personality traits that you have. Okay, so just going in a little bit deeper in terms of screening calls. So what you want to do with these is you want to prepare thoroughly. You want to treat it as face to face, okay? And the most important thing is to research the company and the role so that when you do get that call, you can actually demonstrate genuine interest in that particular company and in that role. And I know how it's like, especially, at junior level when you are mass applying and you can kind of lose track as to which company is which. So you do want to actually make sure that you're quite careful in how you're approaching applications. Make sure that you jot down so that you can actually track who is who, so that when they do give you a call, there is a clear understanding of who you're talking to and which company and which business you're talking to. And then in terms of that question that always comes up, tell us a bit about yourself. Okay, it's always going to come up, so just make sure that you have a short pitch that is already prepared beforehand, and it's going to really anchor you in terms of feeling confident, because you don't want to get to that question and then you're ahhing or mentioning things that are not relevant. When they're asking you, tell us about yourself, they're not asking, whether you have pets, whether your favorite color is green. At this point, they really just want to find out who you are in terms of your work experience, or what you've studied, your skills, your goals, and all of that. So you want to highlight the relevant experience and qualifications that would be ideal for this position. All right. And you also want to make sure that you communicate clearly. So you want to speak distinctly and keep your responses focused. Avoid being vague, especially over the phone. That can be quite harmful. So just always craft your 30 to 60-second self-introduction pitch. Technical assessments, you want to make sure that you clarify and that you plan really well for those. I do find, especially as a talent advisor, that this is the part where a lot of people fall off in the technical interviews, because they can be strong technically, but when it comes to like explaining their solutions, explaining their decision making, that's where they fall off, and it's really harmful. I personally see it all the time. That's where a lot of candidates fall off. All right. So you want to make sure that you can explain your thought process clearly. When you ask questions, you want to pause. And if need be, if you need to repeat a question back to the interviewer in your own words, just to confirm your understanding, please definitely go ahead and do that, just so that you're able to think clearly, so that you can communicate clearly as well. All right. And then you also, at the end of it, you want to review the assessment that you've done, test it, make sure that everything is going according to plan. And if you're getting stuck, just know that it's part of the test. But what matters most is how you're going to respond to it. So talk through what you thought would work if things didn't go the way that you thought it would, and then explain why it didn't, which is going to keep you visible and show that you have structured thinking, even under pressure. Okay. And then when it comes to those technical assessments, what you really want to do is apply the STAR framework, which is something that you guys might be familiar with. And really what it stands for is the situation. So you want to briefly set the context, and then you have your task. So here what's needed is, what was your specific role or responsibility in the situation? Action, they want to know what you did in particular. So be specific and use the first person. Remember, people, the hiring managers are hiring you as an individual. So they want to hear what you did, okay? Always use the first person. And then the results, they want to know, what was the measurable outcome? So at this point, you want to talk about numbers, you want to talk about scale, or at least highlight the clear impact that you had wherever possible. All right. Yeah. So that question will also come up. In technical interviews, but it's more, tell me about a time when, and then they'll give you a question, a scenario that you have to talk about, and so you just kind of want to apply this framework when you are answering those. And you can do a deep dive, you can go onto YouTube and find out what these STAR framework questions could be that you could expect, so that you can prepare beforehand. Remember, preparation is really the thing that's gonna make a huge difference in terms of your confidence and actually being able to clearly communicate your value. Okay, and then in terms of soft skills, so those are also going to be major when it comes to interviewing. Um, yeah, hiring managers, recruiters, they're not just looking at your technical ability. I mean, if you're strong technically, that is fantastic, but it really does go beyond that. All right. So they really are looking at your soft skills at a large scale. And what's going to really be important there is communication, adaptability, your ownership, your accountability, as well as emotional intelligence. So when it comes to communication, they want to see that you are able to clearly explain, concepts. They want to see that you're actively listening. When you're asked questions, and then even when it comes to you asking questions to the hiring manager or the recruiter, you're asking thoughtful questions, and they can see that you're actually invested, and that you're actually genuinely interested. So active listening is going to be a big one there. Adaptability, so always making sure that you're learning new technologies, and like I mentioned, also when it gets rough, you're remaining calm, and then once you do receive feedback in any process, it must show that you're open to feedback, don't get defensive, and also be able to show that you are very much open to continuous learning, especially when it comes to the tech industry. Things are developing so fast, and you just always need to make sure that you keep up to speed with that rate. And in terms of AI, especially in 2026, if you're going to say that you don't work with AI in your current workflow, or that you're not even at least trying to learn, it's gonna be a big one that will hurt you. In terms of ownership and accountability, they want to see that you are committed. They want to see that you're able to solve problems proactively. If you've made mistakes, be able to admit that you have made those mistakes, and they want to see that you are solutions focused. Businesses always want to see that you are more invested in the solution, or more than anything. And then when it comes to emotional intelligence, embrace the feedback, manage stress, show empathy, all right, especially towards your team members, because you're not going to be working alone, you're working with others. You need to show that you are somebody that is easy to work with and someone who can be empathetic in a team. And then when it comes to cultural fit, companies are wanting to see that you fit in with the company, with the culture, what they're all about, and that you can seamlessly integrate with that company. And then when it comes to those cultural fit questions, you want to stay professional, you want to be factual and solution focused always. You want to show that you have curiosity and alignment with the company. So alignment will go back to you actually researching that company, making sure that you really understand what their mission is about, what their values are, and if need be, you can even, reach out to someone on LinkedIn or a few people on LinkedIn that work at that particular company just to find out, what's the culture like, and tell them that, you're currently in the interview process with that company, and that, you just want to get a feel for what it's like to work there, so that once you're in that interview process, when you're being asked those questions, you really tailor your answers to fit in with who they are and what they believe in. All right. And then once again, when it comes to cultural fit, they do want to see your impact. So always emphasize your impact, show how you contributed to a positive team environment in your previous employment. Okay, and then when it comes to psychometric assessments, there's two that you can expect. One is the reasoning or the cognitive tests, and the other is the personality questionnaires. And if none of you are familiar with the reasoning tests, they can be very tricky. They can be very tricky, and a lot of people find them daunting. But usually, the larger companies, especially the ones with more structured hiring, they will ask you to complete these assessments. Yeah, so just be prepared for those. And the only way really that you can be prepared for these is to familiarize yourself with the format first. So know what type of test it is. When it comes to those abstract reasoning assessments, they can be non-verbal, pattern-based. So no prior knowledge is really needed. But if you just like Google psychometric assessments and do just practice rounds for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, it can make a big difference. Okay. And then you also want to time your energy. So if you can, if there is that flexibility of you choosing when to do the test, try and do them in the morning when your mind is still fresh, when the busyness of the day hasn't like caught up with you yet, just so that you can actually bring out a strong performance. Okay. And then in terms of like, if there's like really hard questions and you really don't even want to attempt, rather just skip them and then prioritize the ones that you think you know or you could potentially know. So prioritize the accuracy above, just trying to get the whole test done, because the accuracy is going to count way more. All right. And then be transparent. So that just means that in terms of the questions that are being asked, be very honest. Okay, don't just give them the answers that they're looking for. They really do want to find out what your personality is like in the workplace and work specifically. Yeah, so just make sure that you're being honest and not just giving them the answers that they want, because they can tell. And some of these assessments are engineered in a way that they can actually tell when you're just busy trying to output the right answers. Okay, and then when it comes to virtual interviews, you definitely want to treat these the same way that you would when it comes to face-to-face interviews. All right, so even as a virtual interview, you want to dress up, you want to make sure that your body language shows that you're present. You want to make sure that you are in an environment that you can actually take that virtual interview. So um, as best as you can, just make sure that there's no one who will be walking up and down in the background or having any distractions. I know sometimes it is hard. Maybe sometimes you're living with family, a large family, but at that time just try and ask them to accommodate you. So close the door, just make sure you don't have any interruptions. Where you can join 5 minutes early, especially to do technical checks. Is your camera working? Is your sound working? Can you put a background so that it can hide anything that's behind you that might not be attractive? But if you can have like just a clear, clean wall behind you, fantastic. But if you do have to put a virtual background, then definitely do that. So be mindful of that background. And then when it comes to lighting, you want to make sure that there's a natural lighting that's hitting you from the front, because if the lighting is coming from the back, it's going to create a silhouette in front of you and you will come across as black or dark. All right, so you want to just test things like that and make sure that you're mindful of those details as well, and then be prepared for any power cuts. So yeah, if you're on Wi-Fi and anything had to happen, just load some data on your phone so that you can quickly hotspot and rejoin that virtual interview. And yeah, like I mentioned again, your technical checks. All right. And then some questions that you can ask the interviewer at the end of most calls or interview processes. They will ask you if you have any questions. And even if you feel like, yes, everything has been clear up until that point, it is quite valuable for you to ask, one or two to three, valuable questions that just show that you actually have a keen interest in other elements apart from what you've maybe come to learn at that point. So for example, when it comes to the role, you could ask, what qualities do you look for in someone in this particular role? When it comes to growth and learning, you could ask, what development opportunities are available in this particular company, in this particular role itself. When it comes to the team, you could ask, what is unique about working here compared to any other companies? And when it comes to the culture, you could ask questions like, how does the team approach adopting new technologies? Okay, so you've got the internet, you could go there, LLMs, you've got everything at your disposal in terms of just asking what questions can I ask in an interview process. You could give more context as to what that role is and maybe even the company so that you can actually tailor your questions to that particular company and the particular role. Okay, so yeah, that is it on my end. And so yeah, if you take away anything, it's that clarity is gonna beat experience. Just be able to clearly communicate who you are, what you can do, and the value that you can bring to a business and a company. And confidence really, really is going to come from preparation. If you're not prepared, it really is going to be easy to see as someone on the other end, as the recruiter, as the hiring manager. If someone doesn't know what this company is, what this role is, or what they're doing, it's going to show. And then communication is really going to be your biggest advantage. So practice in terms of communication. Be just sure that you're someone easy to engage with, someone who will be easy to work with as well. And once you've done that work behind the scenes, then you know that you are ready. And at that point, it will just be a matter of you showing up and showing all of that very clearly. All right, that's it on my end. Um, If there are any questions, we do have a few minutes where we can take some questions. So yeah, feel free to either raise your hand um, or you can just pop a message in the chat.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Can you
Okay.
see the Q&A
Yes.
tab at the top? Yeah, there are some questions we've
Yes.
posted as the session continued, so you can get started.
Okay. Let me just see where it started. Okay, all right, over here. All right. So if someone has had a couple of failures prior years, but the marks have improved drastically, how does one communicate the failure versus the improvement transcript wise, especially to a competitive company and in the competitive job market? Okay, yeah. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, I think it will be basically exactly that, just being once again transparent and honest that, okay, these were my previous results, but I have worked on improving them. And you can also explain, the work that you've put in to change those results and then clearly show the improvements that you have. So you kind of have your before and after, and then once again, clearly just showing the work that has come in for those improvements to be there. I hope that answers your question. And then the other question here says, have I personally recruited straight from OfferZen? Okay, so in terms of the OfferZen model, it's a bit different to like your traditional recruitment. We are a marketplace, a talent marketplace. So the platform has, you know, thousands of companies who trust that on our platform we have strong tech candidates. And so once you've been accepted onto the OfferZen platform, you can kind of start interacting with the companies themselves. If they come across your profile and they find it really interesting, they will directly reach out to you and say, you know, we're keen in having an interview with you, and you kind of are in control of that process. Where we come in as talent advisors, we are really there just to support you in terms of finding out if you're happy with the role and the alignment. Is it what you're really looking for? Because sometimes apart from, you know, the job description, you're actually looking for, you know, other things like a good team culture, or you're looking for work-life balance, or you're looking for remote working. You know, all of these other factors come into play. So we're there to kind of support you and just see, okay, is this the right opportunity for you? And also helping you in getting interview ready. So helping you with resources, talking to you about some of the elements that we spoke about today, just so that you're actually ready to go into the interview process prepared. Let's see. Okay, in terms of the skills that we mention on the CV, can I add skills acquired through a course, or does it only have to be skills acquired at a workplace? All right, so if it pertains to the course, then be very specific that those are skills that you acquired through a course. Don't try to make it seem like you did it through a company. Be transparent. Be transparent once again, because that's always going to be important. If you are not telling the truth on a CV, you're going to be caught out. So just always be honest when it comes to that. How to improve my communication skills, especially in the workplace. All right, so with that, once again, just educate yourself online. Go onto YouTube, find those videos that explain to you how you can communicate well, and then just train yourself from there. Use your LLMs to help with that. And yeah, an LLM will really break down, okay, this is how you improve your communication skills. And then on YouTube, there are channels that are dedicated to helping people improve those skills. Okay. Do colors matter? Should the CV only have black as a color? What type of fonts are suitable? Okay, so a little bit of color won't hurt. Okay, you don't want to go too crazy with that. So yeah, stick to the basics. Your black and your blue. If there is a bit of, you know, like in the CV structure that I showed you now, I mean, the name was written in red, but the rest of the font was in black. So if it's like that, it's perfectly fine as long as it is not distracting. And then in terms of fonts, anything that's easily readable, you know, like your Roman, your Arial, those are perfectly fine. I see some CVs personally on a day-to-day that come in with like special characters and fonts. And although I appreciate the creativity as recruiters, we just want something that's really simple and plain and easy to read. So yeah. Tips on writing cover letters. Once again, I will always advise, don't crack your brain in, in this day and age. Use an LLM, your ChatGPT, your Claude, put in your skills, your experience, and just tell it that, look, I'm applying for X position. I need to write a cover letter. Please help to put this together for me in a nice, concise cover letter that is tailored to that role. Okay, and then okay, how do I correctly list forage job simulation on my CV, specifically the section, job title, and whether it counts as experience? Okay, so if you don't have work experience, your projects is what's going to count as your experience. So always make sure that you have projects prepared that can show that that is kind of your experience. So it's okay if you don't have the experience, just make sure you have projects that show that you've actually been doing something. Is it possible to get the slides? Yes, sure. So I will organize for them to be shared with you guys. Um, Naomi, I'm not sure if you can uh, come into that one. I'm not sure how much time we have left. So just stop me if I'm going over the time.
No,
And
it's fine. I
then,
think we have maybe like 6 more minutes.
yeah, okay, all right,
Yeah.
cool. All right, and then this one says, I'm still a student. I'm trying to understand the best approach to get some experience before the end of my degree. Would you advise cold calling and emailing or applying to the company website or all of the above? Yes, okay. So yeah, if you're still studying, like I mentioned, projects is going to be your experience, so remember that one. And when it comes to applications, yeah, the more the merrier. Like I mentioned, the market is tough. You are going to have to put in the work. So if you feel like you're overdoing it, you probably are on the right track just so that you can actually cost your net. Mm, okay, and then some companies want you to create a video and submit before interviews. What is the best way to go about that? And what's important to include and exclude in that video? Okay, so it really depends on the details that the company has said, because usually they will be very specific on what they're looking for in that video in terms of the information and all of that. But because it is a video, just apply some of those nuggets that I mentioned about being mindful of your background and clarity and all of that. But usually, in my experience, it will tell you exactly what to include. Some of those videos will come up with questions that you have to answer. So it really just depends on how it is with that particular company. Okay, when it comes to psychometric assessments, between being able to work alone or working in a team, which one is more important? I would say that they equally as important, because companies do also want to see that you can have an autonomy on your own work and that you can kind of self-manage yourself, but it's also equally as important to be able to work in a team. um, yeah, that you're someone that's going to add value in a team, that you someone who can work with others as well. Yeah, they don't really want black sheep, so you want to make sure that one, you can work on your own and manage yourself well, time management and all of that, but you can also at the same time work well in a team. Maximum pages of a CV, try to keep it 1 to 2 pages. So as much as you want to give a lot of detail, it's more valuable for you to be clear and straight to the point when it comes to the information that you're going to put on your CV. So maximum 2 pages, but usually at junior level anyway, it's going to be uh, more so 1 to 2 pages. So yeah, don't go over that, because remember, once again, if it is a hiring manager, if it is a recruiter that is having a look, they don't have so much time. They are working with a lot of people. I'll give you an example of myself. Each talent advisor at OfficeN works with a portfolio of about 100 candidates each week. So the time is limited. Okay, and then what should I write under work experience as a person with no experience? And that one is projects, like I did mention. If invited for a physical interview, is it a bad look if is it a bad look to ask if a virtual interview is possible, considering you're in a different province? Yes, okay, so if you're in a different province, you are going to have to make that clear as well. So if you're in KZN and you're applying for a position that's in Gauteng, this is usually where it's going to be important to mention it on a screening call, just so that you can make sure that, okay, the recruiter is aware that you're not in the same province. Um, if they are flexible, then they might be able to accommodate you, but it depends on the company. Companies are so different. Expectations from this one to this one are drastically different. So just find out from that particular organization. Okay. In an unfortunate event that you leave work due to unfavorable circumstances, who could I use as a reference other than my previous employer or manager? All right. Yeah, that one is a deep one because I come across that one a few times. And it is very tricky. And sometimes the hiring managers they can pick this up that okay, this is not a previous employer, because sometimes you will actually state there, that this is X and X from X company, and if X company is not showing up on your CV, or if it kind of says colleague, or it doesn't specify what the title of that person was, it can end up coming out. So if you have left the job in unfavorable circumstances, be honest once again. And I always say this, and I actually had this situation literally 2 months ago with a candidate who said, Steph, what am I going to do? I'm at offer stage with this company, but these were the circumstances and I'm not comfortable in sharing a reference. So I had to just advise her, okay, at this stage, just put down that um, this is a colleague, or this wasn't my manager. And then if they if they potentially ask you about it, then just be honest and just say, okay, this was the situation. This is what led me to leave that position. Because most times, anyway, they will ask why you left your previous job. And if you're not honest at that stage, it will later, come back to bite you. So honesty all the way, even as much as it might hurt. But yeah, it's better than having a bad experience towards the end of a process, especially if you've come to offer stage. Uh, let's see. Do I have time for
Maybe
one
just
more?
one more.
One more. Okay, cool. Um, all right, so this person says, I have a profile with OfferZen, but I'm having issues with making my profile go live for companies to view. What can I do? Because I have been emailing and sending messages to OfferZen on LinkedIn and no response. Okay, so usually what happens is that if you are trying to apply to come live onto OfferZen, your profile firstly goes to what we call our curation team, and they kind of the marketplace analysts, and they just kind of have a look at the environment on OfferZen to see, will there be chances for you to find opportunities on OfferZen? Are your skills in demand, your years of experience, etc.? If all of those are not favorable, then they unfortunately won't be able to accept you onto the platform, just because it means a bad experience for you. You come onto the platform, no opportunities for you, and so they kind of do just advise that you try and apply after a month or two to see if maybe the marketplace has changed, but you should receive communication on the outcome. Okay, I think that's all the time we have. Naomi.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I think what you've given us is so insightful, and the pointers, especially the one that stood out for me the most, is around not listing yourself as a skilled worker, work well under pressure, more terms that actually express what you bring to the table. And I really think that's something I'm definitely gonna change right now as I finish my CV. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
So thank you so much. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Naomi. And thank you to everyone that joined.
Yeah, thank you also for joining. Thank you, everyone. As we wrap up for today, I hope you're able to pick something, and I'm sure that the Ninis will be sent over via email. and then everybody will get an opportunity to just run through the slides individually and just pick up more amazing nuggets. Yes. And I think with that, that marks the end of today's webinar. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.